Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to Latin Libertarians. My name is Martha Bueno, and we're coming to you live. It is Wednesday, September 22nd. And as always, I have my wonderful co-host and friend, Mr. Zach Foster, coming live from LA. Hello, sir. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you very much. How are you?
A little bit of everything. Super excited, though. Have lots to talk about today, including updates from Cuba, which is my favorite topic these days. But we do have an excellent show for everyone tonight. We have our favorite Australian here tonight. We've got the Deactivist. Yay!
Our favorite living Australian.
Sure. Okay. I don't know why we needed to qualify.
Everybody knows who number one was. Sorry, that one goes to Steve. Nothing against Randy. I will say though, Randy is definitely number two.
Definitely. And so without further ado, let's bring him on because there's way too much going on in Australia. We need to get more information. So everyone, welcome Randy the Deactivist. Hello.
Hey guys, going. How you doing? I wish I dressed as Steve Irwin today. That would have been amazing. Maybe next time.
Crocodile Dundee works too. You know?
Just don't try method acting. All right.
Yeah. Have a look at this little beauty. It's funny in those shows how every single rock he looks under, he finds a lizard magically.
If you were going to be Steve Irwin, you'd be like, all right, under this rock, we've got a Victoria police officer. Watch out, he bites.
If only. Yeah.
So
I like it. They're using the lingo.
What is going on over there?
Well, what's the perception in mainstream media, first of all, that you're getting, and let me tell you how accurate the picture is that they're painting for you. Maybe that's a good way to go about it.
Should we play a video of what our media is telling us, or do you want us to tell you?
Sure, yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Well, it's actually, I think our mainstream media, I really haven't seen much. I've been seeing it more online.
From what I've seen, with the limited coverage, the perception wobbles to Australia is doing what they've got to do to cover the virus, to some are concerned about authoritarian measures in Australia, and that's about it.
Yeah, okay.
And this is a citizen video from Victoria, I believe.
Yep.
All right, so what are we looking at here?
So this is day 2 or day 3 in the Melbourne protest, and these are all the construction workers that have been told you have to have your first jab or else you can't work Monday. And so they all said, bugger that. We're going to protest every single day. So they should be there today. I looked this morning and it didn't seem like there was much of a turnout, but they came out en masse. There were thousands upon thousands of them. And the funny thing is that most of these construction workers are, they've got Greek heritage and Middle Eastern heritage. There's a couple like white Anglo construction workers, but they're not the majority, they're the minority. And the funniest thing is the mainstream media came out and said they were far right, alt-right Nazis pretending to be construction workers, and there was only 2,000 of them. But they blocked an entire bridge in the city. There was thousands upon thousands, and it was absolutely ridiculous how they painted them as Nazis, and people seemed to buy it. They were like, yeah, I guess they are Nazis. So there's that. But also there's today, the police have put in an order to say that mainstream media aren't allowed to stream live any of the protests. So they have to stream 1 hour behind schedule. And yesterday they also had a no-fly zone. So the media weren't allowed to show any drone footage because they don't want to show how many people are at the protest, right? So there's a total media blackout. It's absolutely ridiculous what's happening. But they're really trying to paint people as like, oh, you're crazy anti-vax Trump supporters or something like that, when literally in the video they show moments before, there's a Croatian gentleman saying, I'm going to go back to Croatia if they make me get the jab. And it's like, I'm pretty sure he's not like an alt-right Nazi. Like, what are you talking about? So there's that. So what else have you, what other perceptions do you have about, what's going on down here? Because it's pretty wild. It's hard to unpack without knowing what you guys have gotten.
To be quite honest, we've been getting very little about that over here, mostly because there are other crises going on. We got pantsed in Kabul in Afghanistan in those last couple of weeks. So the whole war has been focused on that. We've got 10,000 migrants showing up every week on the Rio Grande. So a lot of eyes are on that. And even like a lot of the politicized groups that like to brawl in the streets, they're either brawling like in Berkeley over like the same far left, far right crap, or you've got like the militia groups, going down to the border, or like the far left folks going to protest at ICE facilities. And that's about it. I mean, we're pretty distracted. Oh, and then you've got, because we've got our own lockdown issues and our own very unique way that we've been interpreting that, there's actually been very little confrontation, comparatively speaking, over here with folks and the police. It's mostly like pro-vax, anti-vax, or pro-lockdown, anti-lockdown moms screaming at each other at the PTA meetings, like until the police have to intervene. Like it's stuff like that. So, like, the far left and the far right like brawling at the PTA meetings, and because of that, people really aren't paying attention to what's happening in Australia. But my personal perception, I've seen this movie before, except it takes place in Britain.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the joke is we started as a prison colony, and that's how we're going to end. We've got that divide. We really do have the ruling class, and then the the slave class. So I just sent a clip through to Martha. I don't know if you've seen this, so maybe just press play and look at the girl in red.
I actually posted this video.
So this video shows two police officers violently shoving down an old lady.
Oh, jeez.
And then pepper spraying her, both of them pepper spraying her on the ground. But the amazing thing is the amount of officers who just walk past. So this is shocking to me. They just keep walking. All of them keep walking. Look how old she is. Except for this one guy. I think that guy, like, hats off to him. And he stays the whole time to make sure she's okay. But I count 42 officers who walk past. And a lot of people are like, critics of the protest will say, oh, it's just two bad eggs, two bad police officers. But it's like, no, it's the 42 officers who just walked past. That's the problem. Yeah, and the one who pushed her. And the mainstream media, the ABC here, reported this as she fell over. They've changed it since then, but they said she fell over. And it's like, what if she got hit by a car, would you say she was like cartwheeling through the air spontaneously to promote the Matrix? Like, what are you talking about? But the things the mainstream media are getting away with is absolutely ridiculous. But it's really telling as well. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the socialist calculation problem, but I mean, on day 3 of the protest, there was like 1,000 SWAT team members to protect a union head office. So the construction workers initially went up against their union boss because the union boss wouldn't represent them and say, hey, we don't want no jab, no pay. We just want the choice. And the union boss was not having a bar of it. So they went to the union and it got pretty violent. So the next day there's like 1,000 police officers protecting this union building. Presumably the union bosses wouldn't be in that day because they'll be too afraid. And it's like, how is this economically viable to have that's $100,000 basically to protect this one building? Like, what are you doing? And it just shows that the government just doesn't know how to do economic calculations, because the way they get their revenues through force and taxation and printing money, and like they don't actually bear the cost of bad decisions. And it's just, you watch this unfold as a libertarian, like one of the only libertarians in Australia, and you're like, I'm going to blow my brains out. Like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, you try and talk logic into people and they're like, you're just an alt-right Nazi. And it's like, really? Like, what are you? Yeah, so it's ridiculous what's happening here.
So we have a question for you here. Do you have media blackout laws in Australia?
I don't know the answer to that, but they did request that everything streams an hour later, and they request a no-fly zone. But we have things that are worse than media blackout laws. I can't remember if we talked about this last time I was on your show, but we have this thing called the Identity and Disrupt Bill, which basically means the police can imitate myself online, talk to my friends. They can delete my posts. If I say, hey, we should go protest, they can change it to say, hey, we should not go protest. So that's, through this whole, because everyone's so anxious about COVID, no one's been talking about this. It's just been swept under the rug, and it's just gone through. And it's like, well, a lot of people, like in my circles, are de-Googling their phones and getting rid of Facebook and stuff. But I mean, it doesn't really help to spread a message that way. So it's crazy what's happening. Absolutely crazy.
It is absolutely crazy.
The part about them changing posts or deleting or making them on your behalf, that's absolutely terrifying. Now, every one of us signs a contract with the particular social media platform that we make something on. So even though it's really messed up, if they were to do that, like if Mark Zuckerberg decides, I think this is a good thing, I'm going to hack into people's, Facebook profiles. You gave him permission to do it in the terms and conditions they didn't read. There's an entire South Park episode with the human centipede. But for the government, for the state to say that we are going to do this to anyone at any time, that goes even further than when our government just started randomly spying on Americans electronically just because we got to fight terrorism, and Snowden brought that to light. In my opinion, this is something similar to that, if not something that goes a bit further, because they were just violating your privacy. They were never trying to be you.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, and it's even more dangerous now because we have 5 kilometer limits on how far we can leave our home. We're only allowed to leave for an hour. So it's like, if you want to talk sense into someone about what's going on in the world, you can't do it online because they can just change what you say, and you can't do it in real life because you're not allowed to meet up with people. And so it's like, you don't really have much recourse. And I just still can't believe that the majority of Australians are just like, oh, the protesters are stupid, they shouldn't be out. Like the comments I got on that video that I just sent you, it went viral. It has about 100,000 views on my Instagram page. But some of the comments were like, she shouldn't have been there in the first place. Another comment said she would have been worse off with COVID. Like, it's just ridiculous. And you're like, so what happens if they murdered this woman? Like, you're still going to say, oh, she shouldn't have been there. And it's like, who are you to say that? Like, we can't leave our homes. We can't run our businesses. The government's destroying the middle class. Excuse me. The government's printing money astronomically. The government's identifying as us online, and you're saying she doesn't have the right to be there. We're not allowed to protest. It's ridiculous. I'll give you another revelation that happened yesterday. The protesters ended up at a war memorial shrine from World War One. So people who died for our freedoms, and they thought that that's a great symbol for us. The mainstream media said it's disgusting to use that symbol in that way. But here's the thing. And about 4:00 in the afternoon, the police said they jumped on a megaphone, and they said, yeah, you guys can leave. You just have to leave to the right. You can't leave behind us. You got to leave to the right, and you can leave. Well, you're free to go. As soon as the crowd started moving, they opened fire with rubber bullets. And you're like, you're talking about disrespecting the shrine. That's disrespecting the shrine. Yeah, they just opened fire. There is rumor that someone did pass away, but it's not confirmed yet. That's floating around Telegram, but we don't know what happened to the old lady, and we don't know whether this gentleman passed away. We just don't know. Could be a hoax, but we don't have the information.
Well, rubber bullets are dangerous, actually. A lot of people don't know that, but you can actually, eyes are lost to protest all the time, and it's actually quite dangerous. You can die from a rubber bullet. So what are the police doing?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Well, speaking of that, there is a second clip from Victoria that I would like to show real quick. Martha, would you cue that up? Because this one right here, folks, you get the whole shebang in one sentence. What this is all about, why things are the way they are. This guy makes it plain.
Let's go.
I'm not getting audio through the clip.
Oh, you're not getting the audio? Here. Sorry, guys. Give me just a second. Let me try that one more time. Hold on.
Have that queued up in just a sec, because I really want everybody to see this clip. This gentleman might be the single most honest police officer in the entire world.
All right, let's try this one more time. Can you hear it now?
Yeah, that's great. Listen, I'm not here to argue with you unless go home. Otherwise, they start issuing tickets. Right. We don't want to do it, but we will do it. Right? Well, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Stand up for your leaving rather than paying. Just go home. All right? We get paid to do this, mate. I'm just as over this fucking protest as you are.
By protest, I mean lockdown. Fair enough. I've got to do what I've got to do. You don't have to do. You don't have to do. You're choosing to do what I'm not skilled to do anything else, mate. So unfortunately, at this time of my life, that's what I have to do. My wife's in the same position. She's out of a job at the moment as well. I understand you being pissed off about it, and there's a way to go about it. That's all. And unfortunately, this isn't it, mate. I respect that. You might not, mate.
None of this has to do with health. What health has to do is exercise through the sun, not injections. Okay? Mental health affects this group. You're looking at those people killing themselves. It's not
At the end of the day, I agree with you.
Then why are you standing on this side and not us? So you agree with me that you get paid to do that, so you stand on that side. Exactly. You're doing what you're getting paid to do, not what you stand in, and that's why I disrespect you.
That's fine. And I'm still asking you to go home, please.
Yeah, getting paid to so you and your wife can eat. We won't, but you can eat. So I know, but hey, we're not going home. We're not listening to your words anymore. Yeah, that's fine, mate. We don't, if you can't tell, we're not afraid anymore.
Good Lord. Well, I mean,
man.
He made it plain. I don't have the skills to do anything else.
Yeah.
Can you
It's
imagine?
like, I mean, he has the skills to form an insurrection, that's for sure, right?
Like, holy
But
cannoli.
it's not like I understand his sentiment, but at the same time, like Australia has had the best COVID support. Not that I agree with it, but we've got the best government payments of anywhere, pretty much. It's not like America where you had like $600 checks sent out by Sleepy Joe and they came like 6 months late. It's like so easy to get a grant. It's like they don't even check your records properly. Like, and a lot of people have been doing fraudulent activity. They've just been taking heaps of government money, but that's a different story. But like, he could literally just quit and take the government payment. I thought of an idea where we could just start a GoFundMe for the first officer who just throws down his shield and stands with the protesters, and let's just reward good behavior. Like
That's a really freaking good idea.
That guy could be a millionaire overnight, and it's like they'll pay for his legal fees if there's any legal repercussions, and it'll give him a mansion.
They'll pay for training and a new career. I mean, if he wants to be one of those, I don't want to live off handouts. I want to earn my own. All right, so you just need your health for 6 months, a year. All right, cool. If that means you're going to stop hurting people, hell yeah.
Yeah, and it's not, we also have free government like short courses and stuff to retrain people anyway, like as part of COVID relief. It's like if you want to, you do a course in I don't know, I think they're like if you want to be a chef or like things like that, like trades that you can actually make money, practical trades, and they're free. And it's like, I get it.
This guy's choosing to.
Campus is 6 kilometers away, so I guess you're out of luck.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'll tell you a funny story. These hikers went out for their 1 hour exercise in the Blue Mountains, and they got lost. So they had to get rescued by, emergency services. And when they got rescued, they got a fine for being out for longer than an hour.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's like, you can't make that up. Like,
that's pretty awesome.
Oh boy! So going back to this officer, he doesn't have any other skills. He can't flip some burgers. He can't do any other job. He literally has to just arrest people or block them from protesting. That's the only skill he has. Good to know.
Nunchuck skills, computer hacking skills. Guys with girlfriend have great skills.
Hunting skills.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous that I saw a great quote. I think it was in the Facebook group Volunteerism or one of those like libertarian groups where it said, it's a greater moral decision to disobey laws than to pass them, right? So our leaders like issuing these edicts, it means nothing to them really. They just want the power, and it's not really a moral dilemma for them. But it's a huge moral dilemma for people who are in the position whether to obey them or not. And honestly, it just takes one. It just takes one person to lay down his arms and be like, "I'm not doing it," and then other people can do the same. it's really crazy being in Australia where, you know, we used to have this perception of, like you said, Steve Irwin, this kind of larrikinism. I don't know if you guys remember Paul Hogan from all those, you know, Crocodile Dundee.
Crocodile, yeah.
If you watch his clips from the Emmys or whatever, they're just hilarious. Where he's saying, if you don't win your award, don't clap and smile like you're happy about it. Just old-fashioned booing. That's what you need to do. Like that kind of cheeky Australian attitude is kind of dead now. We've just become compliant robots. We're just scared of, you know, authority, but also obeying it every step of the way. And as we were saying before this stream started, I feel, and I think, Zach, you feel the same, is just Australia is just a state of China. It's just we like, even in Hong Kong, I have friends who went to the protests in Hong Kong. There was no media blackout there. Like, you know, you're free to film people, and like, yeah, it was like a dangerous environment, but not compared to Melbourne, Australia. And this is supposed to be for people's health and safety. I mean, how does it make sense to set up roadblocks and box people in when you're supposed to be, you know, 1.5 meter distancing from each other? Like, I made a video 2 days ago about how if the police didn't show up, there'd be no violence and it'd be healthier for everyone. But, you know, it's just a power play, right? They just have to show up. It's like, just
like
don't
you
show
were saying,
up.
they showed up and they were the cops were all ready to brawl with the soccer moms. But then when the construction workers were there, you know, the cops weren't so ready for it.
100%. And like they were ready in the afternoon, but like by then all the violence had already happened, and they really upped the ante the next day. But you're right. When all the construction workers went to so they did protest before and after the one where the police knocked over the old lady. But when they were at the union boss headquarters, which you know that there's going to be a fight, like you're talking about Australian tradies here, like fighting is in their nature, and they're up against the union boss, and we all know that union bosses are corrupt as hell. And like the union bosses come out and they're already swearing at their members. They're like, what the F are you guys doing here? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, there's going to be a brawl. And the police were nowhere to be seen. They came, like on a typical day, they came 3 hours late.
Typical bullies. Typical bullies. They don't actually want to get into the fight, but they know that the civilians, you guys are unarmed. What's really going to happen?
I'm like remembering that Family Guy clip of George W. Bush, like 20 years later, shows up to the National Guard base. He's like, yeah, let's go to Vietnam. I'm ready. And they're like, dude, that's been over for a while, man. He's like, oh, snaps.
Yeah, exactly, totally right. Insane.
So what's the end goal here? What's going to end up happening? Where do we draw the line? Where does the government draw the line?
That's a great question. I posed the same question on my Instagram profile. I said, if you don't own your body, what do you own? And everyone's like, I never thought about it that way. And it's like, really? You've never thought about this? In the 18 months you've been locked down and not able to do something? Like, you haven't thought of this? Like, what are you doing? There's not that much on Netflix. Like, Tiger King is over. Also, I love that line where he's like, I'm a libertarian, so F the feds. I mean, best line in cinematic history, right? But where's the line? I don't know. The construction workers said they one of the chants was every day. They were going to protest every single day. There was also an earthquake in Melbourne for the first time in forever, which is unusual because we live on our own tectonic plate. So earthquakes are like a 1 in a gazillion chance. So it's funny that it happened in Melbourne. Conspiracy theorists went nuts about that. But yeah, I was
going to say, I was just waiting for the Sydney or the Victoria-based media to just start doing articles. God is doing earthquakes because he disapproves of the anti-lockdown protests.
Yeah, I mean,
make sure you all go home.
Yes, God has sent us the plague because you guys are protesting too much. That's why we have the plague in the first place.
Yeah, I was hoping it was like the end of Lord of the Rings, where like, you know, the tower falls and then the earthquake happens, and you know, all the orcs just fall through the earth, and Aragorn and all the good guys are left. But
well, it's going to be kind of like that, except there's going to be like 20 more endings between now and that one.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know what will happen. New South Wales, where I live, which is the state just above Victoria, where all the crazies are, our government has basically just been really quiet. And like when the construction workers started going crazy in Victoria, they said, construction here resumes Monday. And so they're actually quite scared, which is great. I mean, there's a great clip. I don't know if you have it, but of a police officer in riot gear yelling at people to move on, and he's got his gun drawn and he walks right up into the face of a protester who's just standing there, with his gun drawn, gets into his face, and then just starts walking backwards because he wasn't going to shoot. Like it was an empty threat at that time. Not that it's always empty threats, but it's like there's a lot of power in just standing your ground, right? And there's a lot of power in just normal, peaceful, civil disobedience. You can just sit on the ground. You can just go to a coffee shop. Just do your thing. And like, yeah, and it will just expose these police officers for what they really are. When they're knocking down old ladies and shooting protesters with rubber bullets, when they just literally just told them to go home, like it kind of shows their true colors, right? But as I said in another one of my videos, the police force as an institution doesn't really have a mind of its own. As you guys know, it's made up of individual people making individual choices, and these individuals need to wake up to themselves and be like, actually, I am responsible for my decisions, and I can't just fall back on I'm just following orders, because I hate to make the comparison, but this isn't Nazi Germany. And as soon as you say that, people are like, oh, you're comparing apples and oranges, but not really, not anymore. Like it's pretty damn close. We had Jewish people on the most holy day of the year sneaking into their synagogue. Like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
It is not. And it's crazy that it's happening in Australia. It is crazy that it's happening in the United States. Like Zach was saying before we started the show, we're used to it happening in Latin America. We're used to this type of stuff happening in countries where people don't speak English. English-speaking countries, it's hitting really close to home, guys. Really close to home on that one.
Yeah, it's just like the cognitive dissonance of people not believing that it could happen here. It's like, oh, we're not in a dictatorship, and it's like, okay, like you said, Martha, where's the line? When would you call it what it is, right? Because they're taking control of your body. Like I'd say that's maybe the line should be there at your body.
Yeah,
you can't have property rights if you don't have the right to your own body.
And also as far as the Latin America cases go, the conversation that we're having right now is a conversation that a lot of people over there should have had a long time ago, and they didn't. So you have things that look like the Maduro regime with the famine and the paramilitary shooting protesters, but then you've got stuff like what's happening in Victoria, in New South Wales, in Sydney proper, and it really is a slippery slope. It really is a slippery slope. And again, we're all the descendants of old England. We all, love getting off to the same freedom philosophers from the 17 and 1800s. We all come from that tradition of thought and culture. If V for Vendetta can happen to you guys, it can absolutely happen over here.
Yeah, for sure. And I think my message to people living in America, and I know that it's been manipulated and it's been molested a lot, but man, cherish your Bill of Rights. Just cherish that, because if you didn't have that, I know that it's flawed and I know that it gets, interpreted in different ways. But if you didn't have that, you'd be in exactly the same position. We literally don't have anything like that. And we were brainwashed as children going through school to say, oh, if you have a Bill of Rights, that limits your rights. And it's like, what do you mean? From nothing to nothing? Like, what are you talking about? It limits your rights, but not having a Bill of Rights. Like, we don't have the right to bear arms, don't have the right to free speech, don't have any of these fundamental rights. And not that I'm a constitutionalist, not that I think that, government gives you these rights. They should be like from the creator, whatever that may be for you guys. But like, at least you have the protection. Like, we literally don't. And a lot of American commentators say, oh, I wish you guys didn't give up your guns. But we gave up our brains before we gave up our guns. I mean, if you gave guns to Victorians, they'd be shooting the protesters. Like, it's such a ridiculous place to live. And it literally is like we're upside down in terms of physics, and we're also upside down in terms of our way of thinking. It's insane. And like, if you're an Australian living in America, don't come back. Just go to Florida. Like, live life.
Yeah. You hear that, Vince?
Yeah. So yes, I agree wholeheartedly. I am married to an Australian who can't go back to Australia. And if he does, he can't leave. So looks like at least one Australian is sticking to your advice.
Yeah.
All right, Randall Amigo, how can people find you? How can they follow you?
I'll put my YouTube link in the chat or the Facebook group. So it's just youtube.com/deactivist, and it's same for Rumble and BitChute and Odyssey and all of those platforms. But YouTube is the main one because I don't want to be in an echo chamber. So I'll try and be clever with how I talk about things to not get yeeted off the platform. But for now, that's where I'm concentrating. It's very hard to fight the algorithm. But if people can share directly with people, like in terms of not just put it on your Facebook profile, but share it as a direct message, that's way better because, you know, they know what video you're putting on Facebook and they don't favor this kind of content, as you guys probably experience as well. Like, I mean, conservatives always complain about being, you know, penalized by the algorithms. Try being a libertarian. Like, honestly, we get smashed. It's not even a joke anymore. Like, I released a documentary called Another Way, which is an Australian documentary exploring libertarianism here. So all the libertarians in Australia. It was on YouTube for like, let's say a week or 2 weeks or something. If you typed in Another Way documentary, it doesn't come up. If you type Another Way documentary, Randall Evans, doesn't come up. If you type Another Way documentary, Libertarian, Randall Evans, Australia 2020, doesn't come up. And you're like, how are you supposed to like get your message out with this?
So how are you supposed to find this video? Because now I really want to watch it.
Yeah, well, you just go to my channel and it's the default video. I've just changed it back because yeah, I realize not many people have seen it because it got just so heavily penalized. But it's also on Amazon Prime for people in the UK, and I'm pretty sure the United States at the moment as well. Not for Australia for some reason, but it's another story. But yeah, youtube.com/deactivist. Really thank you guys for letting me come on your show and speak about this. My heart goes out to Cuba at the moment, but also the US said they might put sanctions on us for what we did to that old lady, and can't blame him. So we're getting closer and closer to. You guys didn't hear that?
No. At least okay. I have not. So that might be good. It might just be your media over there, but no. Media over here is saying that Biden is giving you guys some nuclear warheads. So I guess and submarines and stuff. So
nuclear powered submarines. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense because the Australian government had to commit human rights abuses before our government could just give them nuclear weapons to show that they can be taken seriously as a government on the world stage. Come on, Randall. We're not amateurs here.
Yeah, I mean that makes total sense. It does. Yeah, apparently, for the U.S., you gotta do this. So, congrats, Biden.
Yeah. I think the US will treat us much more favorably once we send some people over for Biden to sniff, and then he'll give us what we need.
Hey man, for all the people who are a little more vanilla in their personal life, oil works. Okay, oil, raw materials, it's all good.
Yeah.
Oh boy, guys, we're so gonna get kicked off. All right, well, thanks.
I'm sorry,
this
guys.
Video has been demonetized from YouTube on the following grounds: V for Vendetta is copyrighted material by Universal Pictures.
There you go. Thank you so much, everybody. Please go subscribe to Randall's channel at youtube.com/the deactivist, sorry, not the deactivist.
Yeah, and also I'll be streaming the protest today if anything happens. It should happen, but we'll see. So I'll be live streaming from there as well.
So check it out if you want to see what's going on in Australia. Thank you so much, Randall. Really appreciate it. And thanks for coming on from the future, from Thursday.
Thanks, guys. The future is not very bright.
Not at all. The future is not looking bright. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the future is like every movie after Terminator 2. That's how bad it is. Yeah. All right. I'll see you guys later.
Okay.
Oh man, he's so amazing, Zach. I love having the deactivist here, and then we always end up so sad afterwards because we're talking about subjects that are just so heavy. It's like he's so funny, and then we're all sad. But we do have some really great stuff to keep talking about before we go into Mexico and the U.S., which. This is Latin Libertarians. I do want to give everyone a brief update. So first off, if you are in New York City and you happen to have some time off, can you please head to the UN and make a lot of noise? Tomorrow, Thursday, you are going to have not one, but 2 dictators to go boo at. Or bring some paint. I don't know. Get creative. But tomorrow at the UN, they're expecting none other than Nicolás Maduro and Miguel Díaz-Canel from Cuba. So 2 dictators for the price of 1, guys. Really, it's a great offer. You all should go. You should be there. And while you're there, people can say hello to our friend Nacho. Nacho has been doing a hunger strike in front of UN. And this is the picture of when he started, side by side from just a few days ago. He's even thinner now. It is absolutely heartbreaking to see him. This man is a Spaniard who is doing a hunger strike. He started off with the women that were there weeks ago, and they have since given up. But Nacho is staying strong. He is 26 days in a hunger strike for Cuba. And so you see, I just keep adding. And then there's more. You can go see two dictators and go see Nacho. Don't bring him any food, please, but some sympathy for this man who is giving it all for Cuba.
It's a hell of a thing to do.
Absolutely. It is definitely a hell of a thing to do. Zach, tell us about Mexico and the U.S. What's going on over here?
Ooh, well, for the second half of the show, I thought it would be fun for our viewers to do a compare and contrast of militia groups in Mexico and militia groups here in the United States. We only have time to go into one example for each, but I actually have had a number of years studying this particular area. It's not by casuality that we talk about the war on drugs a lot. I actually did my university thesis specifically on the Mexican drug war and understanding all the different factors that are in play. And one phenomenon that's existed in Mexico for about a decade is the phenomenon of what's called the citizens self-defense groups, the autodefensa, the self-defense movement, which is citizens militias. And then you guys are already familiar with the militia movement in the United States. So we're going to look at a couple of clips. We're going to talk about some stuff. And then towards the end of the episode, we're also going to talk about that incident where the Border Patrol officers thought that they were cowboys. Now, can we go to the Mexico clip number 1, please?
Yep.
Yeah. Now, remember, when you guys are thinking of Mexican drug cartels, just think of, don't focus on the word drugs, focus on the paramilitary aspect.
Mexico's president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, saw images like these of children as young as 6 learning how to shoot. He became enraged.
No se debe de utilizar a los niños.
Children should not be used like this. I am emphatic about that.
But despite the president's harsh reaction, the Nahua indigenous community are still preparing to defend themselves against the cartel known as los ardillos, or the squirrels. The children are part of what's called a community guard that's made up of 96 adult men and a dozen children who defend this village, Ayatempa, where 600 people live. Mexican law allows some indigenous communities to establish their own police forces.
So children over 12 can have real guns, but all of the very small ones have toy guns. And the reason is it gets them used to the idea that they have to defend themselves.
Okay, so there is a lot to unpack in that 1-minute clip. So what do we see here? We see children training with rifles, not because their parents are gun enthusiasts. Most of the folks in that village are farmers. No, there's a life and death situation. Everybody's been thinking about the Mexican drug war as kind of this series of conflicts between different gangs. And well, that is a correct way to look at it, but we're also thinking of our concept of civil war in the old classical context in which there's 2 recognized armies. And what the truth of that country is, those guys are all warlords. Those drug lords are warlords. They have private armies. In many cases, they control the local police or the state police, many outposts of the federal police. There's even sections of Sinaloa and Chihuahua and Nuevo León and other states where the cartels have just taken over federal highway toll booths because Mexico has toll roads like a lot of East Coast places. So now it's just cartel guys sitting in there collecting the toll on the federal highway. And they are absolutely brutal on people, absolutely brutal. So the folks that we see here, the reporter mentioned that they are mostly indigenous. And that is one of the things that you see in a lot of the rural areas. You're going to have a much higher concentration of ethnically indigenous folks. And just being more rural, there's going to be more interchange between folks living on reservations, which in Mexico they call rancherias, and then folks who are living off of the rancherias. So the indigenous aspect of life is much more present in the rural communities. They've already faced a lot of discrimination and brutal racism from their federal government. So a lot of the complaints that ethnic minorities have here against like militarized LAPD or militarized Chicago PD or Portland PD, the indigenous folks down in Mexico have the same beef against the military and the police, but times 1,000. What else? You've got AMLO, the president of Mexico. Boo! This is where we get into some hypocrisy. He says people should not be using children like this, teaching them how to do violence, which is absolutely ridiculous because number one, everybody knows Mexico is a narco state. And the fact that AMLO released El Chapo's son from federal custody just without even another word, without a judge, within a day of the cartel closing down that town and shooting up a bunch of government buildings, AMLO just released El Chapo's son back to El Narco. The ties between drug cartels and all the political parties in Mexico go back more than 2 decades. So this guy, his administration is partially responsible for fueling the violence that is affecting these indigenous rural farming communities to the point where, because parents have, well, I'm not going to go too much, but they're having to train their kids just to be ready. And this is partially AMLO's fault. He didn't start the Mexican drug war, but he did make it worse, all right? Because there was a time after about a decade of fighting, El Chapo had won the war. Before El Chapo got extradited, like of all the different warlords, the Juarez cartel, the Zetas cartel, the Sinaloa cartel, Tijuana cartel, Sinaloa won. El Chapo won. He won the war. Then the violence continued because AMLO and the Cubans came in and things got even messier. However, and this is where hella hypocrisy comes in, AMLO is telling his own people, you should not be using children, teaching them how to defend themselves from psychopathic, predatory criminals with guns, all right? These are not your Humboldt County marijuana farmers who mind their own damn business. These are the people who also do human trafficking, underground casinos, kidnapping people, assassinations for hire. That's that people. They're protecting against them. Also, Martha, who did AMLO have in Cuba? Or excuse me, who did AMLO have in Mexico just days ago?
Oh, well, our favorite dictator, Miguel Díaz-Canel.
Yes. Now, what did Díaz-Canel do with children about 2 months ago? Anybody remember?
You mean where he was taking children from their beds at night and forcing them into military service?
Into the revolutionary militia? Yeah. Yes. All right. So AMLO is chastising these people for doing whatever they have to do to defend themselves from drug cartel violence. And he pays homage to a foreign dictator who literally used children to inflict political violence on peaceful protesters. That's insane, but it gets better. Can we go to the second clip?
We can. I just want to throw in the hypocrisy of AMLO because he's currently being called out by Senator Bob Melendez because what we've been saying all along, they hired Cuban doctors knowing that it's a slave trade.
That it's a slave trade, and they're mostly crappy doctors.
And mostly spies. And it's a way for Mexico to just pay Cuba. So yeah, absolutely. AMLO is the person we should be listening to for moral advice, for sure. So now I go to the US.
No. Let's go to Mexico clip number 2 real quick.
There's
I just want folks to see that for the context. Yeah, there's 2 Mexico clips. We'll save that one for next time.
All right,
let's go back to the US.
Sure.
All right, this is a roulette crapshoot. I have no idea whether we're about to go to US clip or Mexico clip number 2.
Well, if you give me a second,
our audience is going to find out with me. We're going to find out together live.
All right, guys, come on. Give me a second. I will get it to you. I got this. Sorry, everyone.
Remember, like 25 years ago, they did that live episode of ER. I just remember I was a kid and everybody else's parents cared. Ooh, they're doing ER live, and all right, yeah, people made some mistakes, but it was mostly good, and that's the same case here.
As the cartel gained more power, The murder rate started steadily increasing. In the past few months, 9 people have been killed in this village, and 34 others were slain in surrounding towns. The villagers believe the violence is a deadly message from the cartel that wants to take over this drug corridor and tax local businesses as a form of extortion. Today, this picturesque town has still not been invaded and occupied by the cartel, but the security situation is so bad, locals can't travel to the nearby farmers market. The local school shut down because it sits in a cartel-controlled area just past this chain that serves as a demarcation barrier.
We, the farmers, our job is to work the land. But since there's no security, well, we feel obligated to take up arms, prepare the kids, because we don't know when or at what hour they're going to kill us.
So 9 people from their village murdered, 34 from the neighboring villages murdered just in the last couple of months. And those guys are the bad guys.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say, Zach, I'm a vibe. What can I say?
You are a vibe. Sometimes you're a
Apparently
good vibe. Sometimes you're a bad vibe. But yes, Martha, you are a vibe.
Oh, Zachy. Okay, so yeah.
Now let's go north, because what we just saw in Mexico is sort of isolated, but not really. It's part of a much bigger problem, a transnational chain of terrorism made possible not only by AMLO just rolling over for narco warlords, but also by our policies.
This training is preparing recon members for a hypothetical attack.
This is a group called the Arizona Border Recon.
Do you guys train with live ammo?
No, it's a safety thing. We carry rounds with us, and we do have sidearms that are loaded just in case.
Foley says he finances his militia through paid training and speaking engagements. The recon also conducts armed patrols, using loaded AR-15s, pistols, and shotguns on one of the routes where drugs are smuggled on foot for the Sinaloa cartel. This militia patrols the area because they say the government has failed to. Groups of men crossing this public desert by foot with backpacks can be seen in footage that Foley captured on his hidden camera. Foley calls them dope mules.
The dope mules nowadays, their packs are bigger, they're camouflaged, but every cubic centimeter in that pack is full. And basically it's fentanyl, meth, heroin, cocaine.
Foley's cameras caught this man with an automatic weapon. And just over the border inside Mexico, one of Foley's drones captured this man, pointing his gun at the camera.
So there's a lot to unpack there too. Because there are certain things, and just to make it abundantly clear, this is not the Arizona National Guard. This is a privately organized, privately funded group calling itself the Arizona Border Recon. There are certain things I see in this video that, as somebody who is familiar with the situation on both sides of the border and also being ex-military, there are certain things that are huge red flags. For example, this guy's flying drones on the Mexican side of the border. That's a big no-no. That's an aerial invasion. It's because, again, yes, you're spying on the cartels, but if AMLO wants to be a jerk, because he's not in our camp like former Mexican governments used to be in the U.S. camp on the world stage, no. AMLO is firmly in the Cuban camp. Any day, these dingbats could say, hey, you're invading our airspace with these military drones. We have no idea if you're going to predator strike our citizens. Just because some Yahoo in Arizona is trying to fight the cartels. So that is, there's one thing going on there. But then on the flip side, the camera footage speaks for itself. The drug mules are not like they used to be. Some 12-year-old boy with a freaking backpack on, and if you don't get caught by the Border Patrol, when you get back, Don Julio will pay you $100 for completing the mission. No, these are grown men, military-aged males, sometimes women, but mostly military-aged males. They wear camouflage, and then while most of the mules are unarmed, there are people in the parties, in the convoys, who are armed. So it's not like the old days where it's just a couple of vaqueros with a cowboy hat and their pickup truck, and they're going to get a couple of pounds of weed into South Texas. It's not like that anymore. These cartels are full-on paramilitary organizations. The county sheriff, because there's more to that video, but demonetization and copyrights, fair use and all that. The sheriff does not like that the militia group is there because that's a huge hazard. The Border Patrol has made official statements totally against that, but this is where it gets complicated, because my private conversations with Border Patrol members that I talked to back when I was doing my thesis work at Cal Poly Pomona about the Mexican drug war, some of them straight up said, as long as they behave themselves and they keep it within a certain formula, they do their patrols, they don't point the muzzles of their guns south, they're not trespassing on private property on the U.S. side, they're keeping it on public land, and they're not getting into any kind of a shootouts, and better yet, on top of behaving themselves, they're giving us intelligence. They're calling our station on their cell phones, or they're calling us on the civilian radio frequencies saying, hey, on that hill specifically, there's a guy with camo who's a lookout, and he's directing the different mules. The Border Patrol loves that. And frankly, just as an American, knowing that there are members of a paramilitary criminal organization on the other side of the border, literally walking up to the fence with their automatic weapons, and they're carrying narcotics that have been laced with fentanyl, courtesy of the Chinese Communist Party, it does not bother me in the slightest that a privately organized group is taking initiative. For the most part, they're coloring inside the lines. That is a really good thing. That is a really good thing. However, Arizona Border Recon has managed to color inside the lines. There are other groups who have taken it too far. There are other groups who have shot migrants, who are civilians, totally unarmed. And I'm not talking about they really were criminals, but the other drug cartel members who survived, they all lied to the media together to make the police look bad. No. It's not like that. They really did just kidnap a bunch of migrants, act like they were the Border Patrol. They have shot people. They've also committed homicides of U.S. citizens, because remember, while on one hand, we all have the Second Amendment rights, there are other people who are kind of waiting for the day when aggression happens against them. And then there are other people who basically take the initiative to try to act like the special forces of the private sector. As long as you're not violating the non-aggression principle, I don't have any problems with it. But for folks who go to Arizona or they go to Texas and then they kidnap and terrorize 300 migrants, that crap happens more often than you would think. Homicides, kidnapping, at that point, what makes you any different? Please. Exactly. All of that, because all of this is so people can make a bunch of money on crap that's illegal over here, but people over here are buying. That is the one thing that could remove so much of the fuel from that fire. Just legalize over here.
Just legalize it. Nobody's going to buy the Mexican stuff coming across the border when you can just go into a CVS and buy legally safe made stuff. And we know that every time that a drug is made illegal, then something harder comes along. It is what it is, guys. It's the same thing happened over Prohibition back in the 20s. We had the gangs, Al Capone, all these people.
As a matter of fact, Martha, what's the connection between Prohibition and the cartels?
What do you mean, what's the connection? It is the connection.
Alcohol prohibition in the 1920s literally spawned the oldest still existing drug cartel in Mexico, which is the Gulf Cartel. They literally started off in the 20s. It was the Guerra brothers, and they were taking their moonshine across the Rio Grande to Texas.
We don't learn our lessons, guys. We just don't. We're like, oh, it didn't work with alcohol prohibition, but with this, it is totally going to work. With this one time, it'll totally work. So anyways, we're coming to an end here very shortly, and I just wanted to take a moment and big shout out to our good friend Yomar, who put this whole thing together. Guys, as of tomorrow, there is a Libertarian Ibero-American Alliance. This is a group of...
Que quiere decir Ibero-American?
Huh?
Que quiere decir Ibero-American?
What is Ibero-American? Sure, for those who don't know, it includes all Spanish and Latin American countries, including Brazil and Spain and Portugal. So we are going to be live tomorrow. It will be in Spanish, but for those of you who are interested, Zach and I will be a part of this. My superhero libertarian love, Gloria Alvarez, is going to be representing Guatemala, and we have our good friend Yomar is going to be there. We have Andre Rufino from Brazil is going to be there. People we know.
We've got Jacek from Liberty International is participating as well, I believe.
It is going to be fantastic. At least I think it's a great alliance. We do need unification across Latin America and Ibero. What do we call this? The Iberian Peninsula. I also
so the
have
Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, and then America is these two continents. Except so far for this alliance, they seem to be zeroing in on speakers of Spanish and Portuguese. So if there's any English and French speakers in any of the countries on those two continents, and you guys want in on this, and like you're not being trolls, send me a message. I'll advocate for you because Martha and I are not doing this to represent the American LP. We're actually the representatives for the Cuban LP. They're not going to be able to connect and to be online all day talking with these folks and keep a stable connection to do a 1-hour presentation. The regime actively limits internet usage over there. So I will be the permanent representative to the Cuban LP because I was an advisor at its founding. But Martha is going to sign for them to join the alliance because the person who does that, you already signed? All right, well, there you go. The person who signed needed, in my opinion, to be someone with Cuban blood who's libertarian. So,
and this that is on the screen right now, I just got it a few minutes ago from Pedrito in Cuba. This is the stuff that we got to him. The other stuff that I've been showing had already arrived in Cuba and was being distributed, but this just finally arrived to Pedrito. Pedrito is the cystic fibrosis patient who is 26 years old, and he was so excited. He sent me a few pictures. This is one of them, just showing me the medications. He's now going to distribute it to other people in his group that need it. So deserving. So
I imagine the whole not dying thing would make people pretty excited. Call me crazy.
It is, you know what? And it's such a weird feeling. It's great to be able to do this for some people and then to see other people that need so much more. So we will just keep going, keep trying. But thank you all.
Do we have guesstimates real quick for approximately how many pounds our People for Cuba project has collected?
Not collected, but sent so far. We've crossed the 300-pound mark, but it's very hard because we're actually a group of people. People for Cuba isn't just Zach, you and I. There's a whole group of people that are working on
network. It's a real network of people. Yeah.
Yes. And we have a network within Cuba that is distributing these medicines to everyone. So it's not just us. There are other groups that have gotten it together and sent stuff. Probably all of us together have crossed over the thousands, but that's just not enough. We just have to keep going. This is but a few. And so it's, on one hand, I'm thrilled. And on the other, it just fuels me to keep going, keep sending stuff.
Just to make this absolutely clear for our viewers, we are able to give the gift of life for the specific beneficiaries of this program. Please do not lose sight of the fact that the majority of people who go into the ER or the ICU in Cuba are not going to come out.
This is true. And even, I've said it to you before, Zach. I don't know that I've said it on this program, but I have family in Cuba, and it is heartbreaking to receive messages from my cousin who has a 2-year-old son saying things like, hey, he has a fever and I have absolutely nothing to give him other than maybe a cold shower, and that's about it. So, it is really heartbreaking for everyone here that's listening, that's a parent. You know what I'm talking about. Can you imagine? We live in a country where we just go to CVS or Walgreens or wherever and get medication for our children. And in Cuba, that's not a reality. So, thank you to everyone who's donated. Thank you to everyone who's come out to our events that helped out. It is absolutely amazing. Thank you to the libertarian community because you guys rock. And we'll just keep on. And until next week, thank you all for being with us. Please like and subscribe to the Libertarian Party channel. They give us this platform to do what we do, and I appreciate them for that and for spreading the message of liberty, now in Australia too.
Amen to that. Man, but if it can happen to them, it can happen here. So
absolutely. So guys, don't give up your guns. Resist. Okay, that's all I'm saying. It's just don't go easily. Don't get in the boxcar. All right, guys.
I'm horrified.
I know. Me too.
I'm speaking as somebody who made the voluntary decision to get vaccinated. I am absolutely horrified at what is happening over there.
I am too. As somebody who married an Australian and could never, I don't think he could have ever understood the feelings of not being able to go home. Now he certainly does. So this is getting really depressing. So thank you again.
I haven't been able to visit my relatives in over 10 years because. All
right, guys. Good night. Thank you to all.
Good night.
See you later, alligator.